Hi, and welcome back to Take This Personally. It is Monday, so we're going to talk about a whole bunch of new releases. You may notice I didn't do a video last week. That was because I was actually away. I had planned to do this video while I was away, but it didn't end up working out that way, unfortunately. So what I did was I put the August albums that I was going to talk about in my August review post, which I did on my blog, takethispersonally.wordpress.com. So you can find any of the good albums that came out in August that I was going to talk about on there, and then the rest of the September albums, because that week did end in September, I've included them here today. So we're going to talk about some pretty great stuff. And this week was actually quite a big week, so we do have a lot of albums to talk about. But first I would like to introduce, or just briefly discuss the podcast, which happened last night. It's already up on takethispersonally.wordpress.com, our fourth episode of our official podcast, and we had our very first circle jerk. So what we did, our circle jerks are something new that we've introduced, where we want to discuss a circle really in depth, like a black metal circle. So we chose for this week's theme, the Helvetic Underground Committee. So if you like any of those bands, and I know a lot of you have been on that new Ungfell, definitely check that out. We're not guaranteeing that we'll always have positive opinions, but you know, that's the fun of listening to a podcast, right? You get to disagree, you get to debate and all that. So that did come out last night, and our circle jerks are something we might do more often. So yeah, keep an eye out for that if you are interested. And anyways, so today I have a whole bunch of releases to talk about. I actually did not count them, but as usual, it's ranked, so it'll go from the last one, like the one I liked the least of all of the ones I liked, all the way to the first one that I liked the most. And I am a bit rushing. I'm a bit rushed today. I actually have gone back to school, so I actually have to go to class in like a half an hour. So I'm really hoping I can get this video done before then. It'll probably be up later. I don't know why I'm telling you when it's going to be up, because when you're seeing this, it'll already be up. But anyways, this should be up Monday evening. If it's not up Monday evening, then shame on me. So anyways, that is when you can expect this video for some reason. I talk about weird things when I'm just talking. I really should make a better script so I don't do that. But anyways, yeah, I've got a whole bunch of stuff. Most of it's actually doom metal, I think. But I'm going to get into that. So the very first album I want to talk about this week is Dead Hand with Reborn of Dead Light. And this came out on Divine Mother Recordings. This band is, they're a sludge band, like really sexy sludge, but these guys are from Georgia, the state, not the country. And although we do have bands from Georgia this week that we'll talk about, so I'll make sure to differentiate between the two. But anyways, they have a handful of other releases, including a split with Shroud Eater, who I believe are from Miami. And I've been a fan of Shroud Eater for years. If you have been too, then you pretty much know what to expect from Dead Hand. They are quite similar. But they did release, their last full-length release was in 2015. It was Storm of Demiurge was the name. But this album, it's detuned and it's very thick and crushing, but it's not apocalyptic sounding, not as much as you'd expect anyways, but that doesn't take away from the fact that it is quite awesome. There are slower moments on this album. It's not like crushing sludge the entire way through. Their slower moments sound a lot like Alice in Chains, which isn't surprising, being that they actually have done some Alice in Chains covers, I think. So it is quite clear that that's, who they're taking influence from. But anyways, that was Dead Hand with Reborn of Dead Light, sludge album. Check that out. Anyways, the next album I'm going to talk about, I'm really regretting not counting these now because I don't have numbers for them. Oh well, I should have prepared more. But anyways, so the next album we're going to talk about is from the band Mourn with To the Night Unknown. Now these guys are from Boston, and they are quite an interesting blend, because it's almost like a crusty stoner doom, but sludge stoner is probably the best label for them. In parts though, it is quite interesting because I wouldn't even call them sludge stoner all the way through, because there are parts that are legitimately, they sound like a crustier stoner doom. So it's really cool. A lot of pure Neurosis goodness. If you like InterARMA also, then you will probably like this as well. But this is their very first release in about 5 years, and in my opinion, it was worth the wait. So there's lots of good sludge this week to check out if you're into it. Not that this is sludge all the way through, but I've already gone through that. This is actually their first release, but they've been kind of out of it for a while. Their other 3 releases were in 2009, 2011, and 2013. So it's been a while for them. Like I said, this is their first release in 5 years, but I hope, it seems like the time they spent away was time well spent. Alright, so the next band hardly needs an introduction, and that is Stone Jesus with their new album, Pilgrims. So, if you haven't heard of them before, they're from Kiev in Ukraine. This album came out on Napalm Records, and I mean, it's pretty much exactly what you'd expect from Stone Jesus. It's pretty upbeat, it's got like a lot of dizzy, fuzzy riffs topped with these like hypnotic vocals. I mean, hey, it's Stone Jesus, it's gonna be a good time. So, like I said, these guys don't really need an introduction. So Pilgrims did come out this week. If you haven't heard about it already, if you haven't heard it already, then definitely get on that if you're into stoner doom at all. Although these guys are more stoner rock than anything, especially on this release. But there you go, it's out. So, next release is RKO Beast with Manifesting the Antichrist, which is, I love ridiculously blasphemous stuff. I just think it's so fun. But anyways, these guys are from Virginia, and the way they described this album was quite funny. It's no posers, fakes, or wimps, 100% real death metal for fans of asphyx, autopsy, carnage, cyanide, coffins, death, dismember, immolation, incantation, Morbid Angel, Morgoth, and Unleashed. So there you go. If you like any of those bands, then you're pretty much gonna like this one. Although it is, it's quite death doomy. If you love like old school death metal crossed with doom, like they said in the Asphyx or Autopsy band, then this is something to check out. Although it is an EP, so it's not very long, but it is very animalistic, and what it lacks in length, it makes up for in pure raw energy. To be honest. So it is. I think this is their debut on Horror, Pain, Gore, Death. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is their first, at least with that label. I don't think they've released much else. I think maybe like a demo, but of course, like, don't quote me on that because I haven't done the background research. But yeah, definitely do check that out. I know I love Death Doom. That's like one of my weakest spots, so this is something that I enjoyed quite a lot. Anyways, my second favorite record of the week is 42DE with Fall of the Moon, which is another non-metal album. We have Stone Jesus this week and now this, so this was a good week other than metal, to be honest. But this is a new release on Fluttery Records, and 42DE are an Italian post-rock band. Although it's interesting because they mention on their Bandcamp page that they also are interested in punk and like some various subgenres of punk, which is cool because it's not, I mean, to hear that mixed with post-rock is usually interesting. And this album is completely instrumental, and it took 4 years to write, so you better believe it's going to be good if it took them that long. But anyways, the whole point of this album is it's telling a story from beginning to end, and the story is about the Earth kind of killing off all mankind in self-defense, and the way it does that is by pulling the moon to its surface, and the moon crashes into the Earth, it's drawing down the moon. Okay, I actually wrote in my notes not to make a Beharit joke, so I guess I have to kill myself now. Anyways, so it's about pulling down the moon to the surface of the Earth, and then the moon kind of becomes like the seed of new life, and then the Earth can start fresh with what they call a new, improved concept of existence itself. Anyways, this is an album that I really enjoyed. It's just one of those therapeutic albums. So that is... 42DE with Fall of the Moon, post-rock from Italy. The next band that I'm going to talk about is Ennui, which is French for boredom, with their album End of the Circle, which is one of the more anticipated albums on this list that I'm going to talk about today. We're getting through things really fast today, by the way. I'm on fire today. I think it's because I drank an entire pot of coffee before I did this episode. But this is awesome. Like, I'm enjoying this. Anyways, so Ennui with End of the Circle. And these guys are from Georgia, the country, not the state. And they're funeral doom, and they're quite in the vein of esoteric. That was the first band that popped into my head when I put these guys on. But this album is, like most funeral doom, it's it's slow and it's thick, and it feels like being run over by a steamroller almost. But it's not without various melodic ornaments and memorable riffs, which is a problem I find in funeral doom a lot. A lot of bands, they tend to think that funeral doom is just slower doom, but that's definitely not the case. It's got a specific atmosphere to it, and I've mentioned this before in other videos. This would be an interesting podcast topic, honestly. But these guys are a band that get funeral doom, and this is one that I thoroughly enjoyed. It's only 3 tracks long, but as funeral doom goes, this album is like over an hour long, so don't let the 3 tracks fool you. Each of them do have kind of a different mood. So it starts off kind of more aggressive, and then the mood kind of dwindles into something more slow and more somber as the album develops. So it is, it's entertaining from front to back, but it is quite also depressing, as it should be, it's funeral doom. It's called Funeral Doom for a reason. But yeah, this came out on Non-Servium Records, and this is their 4th full length, and honestly, it's just left me craving more, so I'm excited to see what they do next. I'll be definitely watching these guys. Anticipated albums are always interesting, because I've been waiting for this one for quite a while, and it's almost worse when your album is very highly anticipated, because it's so much easier to disappoint people, but that is definitely not what this album did. So congrats to you guys, and hopefully all of you who are watching this today have found something that's interesting this week. I said earlier I made an August 2018 review chart, so that's something I'm going to start doing again. I may make videos for them and I may not. I didn't do one for the August list, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's something that I won't do. So what they are, essentially, is at the end of the month I'm going to go through and find the best albums that I found that month and put them in the blog post up on Take This Personally. And they're not just like... they're not something that's not going to be updated. I do come back to them and I add more. Like, I've already added to the August post. I've added like at least one more album, Morgue Walker. And so if you've already looked at the list, and like, just go check it out again because I added something. So these are kind of like archives that I want to keep adding to and going back to, and then that'll make it a lot easier for me to go through all these albums at the end of the year when I'm making my list, which is always something that I struggle with, because I find it hard to make an end-of-the-year list that isn't just me listing the recent albums that I've been listening to a lot from 2018. So, yeah, if you are into that stuff, and like maybe it'll help you make your lists too. And for those lists, I also do take recommendations. If you see an album that's not on the list that you think should be added to the list, then go ahead and comment that or send me a message or anything. You can send me a message on Instagram, by the way. I'm on there. It's 4SA4GR, and I'm going to throw that right down here. So you can follow me on there, and also follow Clint, my other podcast host. If you haven't checked out the podcast this week, I do highly recommend doing that. So yeah, also follow Clint on Instagram. He's my podcast co-host. So go check out our podcast. It's up on Take This Personally, like I mentioned. Anyways, he mentioned on the podcast that he's going to be showing off some new vinyl that he got on his Instagram, so if you're interested in seeing that, then make sure you go give him a follow, give him a shout if you like anything he's posting and all that great stuff. So yeah, hopefully you guys have a good week, and hopefully you guys enjoy these new releases, because I know I did.